Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Mysterious Huntsman Podcast. Tonight, I'm so honored to be speaking with Calvin Parker. His story alone fueled my passion for the search for life beyond our small planet. I was 10 years old in 1977 when I first heard of the Pascagoula, Mississippi incident. I read a book called Beyond Earth, Man's Contact with UFOs, and later in 1978, I found a Gold Key comic series called UFOs in Outer Space, Episode 15, the Pascagoula Incident, which I still have to this day. So here is a small excerpt from his new book, Pascagoula, The Closest Encounter, My Story. On October 11th, 1973, 19-year-old Calvin Parker and his friend, 42-year-old Charles Hickson, were spending a frustrating evening fishing on the Pascagoula River in Mississippi. Both men loved to fish, but tonight's fishing trip would turn out to be the one they would never forget. In the early evening, both men were startled when a strange craft ascended and hovered a few feet above the ground and just a few yards from their location. Before they had any chance to run, an opening appeared in the craft and out floated three humanoid creatures. Both men were absolutely terrified when these creatures grabbed them and took them aboard the craft. On the craft, both men were subjected to an examination, and at one point they were so terrified as they believed they were about to die. Minutes later, both Calvin Parker and Charles Hickson were deposited back on the riverbank, and the craft departed. Taking off in their car, the two terrified witnesses eventually located a public telephone and phoned the local sheriff. A short time later, they were being interviewed at their local sheriff's office. These two disoriented witnesses told their story of their close encounter and abduction by the strange creatures. The next day, all hell was let loose as the press descended on this unsuspecting Mississippi town. Calvin Parker, seriously disturbed by these events, has largely remained in the background without ever detailing the full account of what happened that night, how it affected him, and his life and other close encounters he has experienced down the years. Now, for the first time, Calvin Parker tells his story in full. This book, Pascagoula, The Closest Encounter, tells the story of one of the classic close encounters currently on record. This book features for the first time the full transcript of Calvin Parker's hypnotic regression session with the late Bud Hopkins, one of the world's foremost researchers of this phenomenon. So now, Mysterious Huntsman fans, let's sit back and listen to Calvin Parker as he tells us his amazing story. Hey Calvin, this is Paul up in Nashville with the Mysterious Huntsman Podcast. Man, I'm so honored to have you on the show. How are you doing today?
Doing good. Thank you so much, Paul, for having me.
Well, as we spoke earlier, I just wanted to say that, yours was the first story I read about when I was 10 or 11 years old down in South Alabama with nothing else to do but read books. Your story amazed me because it caught, national headline news, and it's kind of it was an amazing story, and I almost have a little connection to it, as in my dad worked for the L&N Railroad at the time and was working down there in Pascagoula, and I remember him kind of coming home and talking about it a little bit. He said, there's something going on in the news, and then, didn't really ask a lot of questions about it, but he remembers this happening. And I just wanted to have you. What's that?
It's amazing that the people that's come forward since all this has happened and heard about it. I've never realized this.
Yeah.
And everybody remembers this, I guess, because it was such a big media event and all. And up until I did the book, I never kept up with this kind of stuff. Or it was amazing to me when the book came out how many people come forward and talked about this and all. And most of them was kind of like you know, around 10, 11, 12 years old. Something come up in the paper and everybody noticed it, and a lot of people have their own stories.
Right. I bet they do. And I'm glad, you just released a book detailing your personal account. And, it's really good. And I suggest anyone that can to pick up a copy of it. And you want to tell us what the title of the book is called?
Pascagoula, The Closest Encounter, My Story, Calvin Parker. And this book, it started out on the bestsellers list, then it dropped to 2 and 3, and it's back up now to the bestseller. It's out in several different languages. Just came out in the Spanish edition today. I mean, just shortly before we spoke, I looked, and it was that came out in that. We got it in French, Spanish, Portugal, Russian. So this thing's going all over now. And a lot of it, the interest is piqued in this, because of the History Channel and them talking about it. But a lot of this was before the History Channel started. So, like I say, it's exploded. And daily basis, there's new witnesses that come out that was afraid to talk about it back when this happened. And they really want to talk about it now. I just got a newspaper article from the Clarion Legend, and Brian Broom, one of the people that wrote the story here, he's come out, he said he's got 5 other people that's come forward and put the articles in the paper, and this just come in last week. So it's something new happening every day on this.
Yeah, and that's amazing because I think with even the military recently coming out and saying that, that even their own pilots are seeing things, I think it's becoming more accepted in 2019, and it's incredible. There's so many cases like yours, but few have gained the attention that yours and Mr. Hickson's. And I even have a comic book from 1977 with your story in it, and I still have it to this day. It's pretty incredible. But I'm gonna take us back a little bit. So this happened on the evening. Was it October 11th in 1973? Is that correct?
October 11th, 1973, in Pascagoula, Mississippi.
All right, and you guys were just going to go fishing off a pier on the bank of the Pascagoula River, which is, you wouldn't think that anything out of the ordinary was going to take place. But, Calvin, if you want to go... Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
It was one of them days where we had worked all day and got off work and decided to just go fish for a little while and kind of unwind.
Right. Well, I'm going to let you just, you obviously you know the story better than I do. If you don't mind, I'm going to let you take it and run with it and just, in your own words, kind of tell me what happened.
Good deal. Like you say, this was October 11th of 1973. I had just this was my first day at work at the F.B. Walker and Son shipyard, and I was down here working for Charles Hickson. And like my first day, I always told everybody that I got a physical, fire, and heart all in the same day. So after work, Charlie wanted to go fish a little bit and kind of wind down because for October it was humid that day. Temperature was high, humidity was high. So I thought it was a good idea that we did. We went by his apartment and picked up. I didn't have my fishing equipment down here. So we went to his apartment and picked up some fishing equipment. And left, he says, I know a little place. I know of a couple little places that fishing's usually pretty good this time of the year. So we went to the old grain elevator first and didn't have much luck there. And then we left and went to the Shaw Peter shipyard, which was an old abandoned shipyard. It had been shut down quite a while. And the first thing I noticed when we pulled up was no trespassing sign. And I noticed a lot of debris, a lot of trash and debris on the ground. I said, Charlie, they don't keep this place too cleaned up. Look at all this junk out here. He said, well, what happens when the storms come and the water gets up, it brings all this in. Then when the water goes back down again, it just leaves it right here. And nobody's really taking time to clean it up. So I just assumed that's why the no trespassing signs was up when we got there. So we parked probably 100 yards somewhere in that area from where we were going to fish, and started walking down to the pier. We got to the pier and we sat down, drug us up an old tree stump. We sat on it. And I was looking out across the water on the other side of the river. We was on what they call the East River, sitting on the west side, looking across. And there was a big old ship, steel hull ship. It was either a Coast Guard or a NOAA ship. And I was thinking to myself, how does something made out of steel float? Look how heavy this thing is, and how does it float? And that's kind of what was going through my mind. When I noticed the reflection of blue lights coming from behind me, reflecting out across the water, and I thought to myself, yeah, no trespassing. The laws down here, they fix to run us off or lock us up. And boy, was I wrong. I wish it had been a law. So Charlie and I stood up about the same time and turned around. And we noticed the hazy blue lights, and all of a sudden they got bright. I mean, eye-blinding bright. And what that was, the door on the craft had opened up, and the lights was coming from inside when this opened up. And it was just it didn't take very long. There was three figures coming toward us, and it was hard to make them out because of the bright lights in our eyes and all, until they got right up on us. And we didn't have time to think about running. Well, I thought about it or think of anything else. So when these lights got on us, got bright, these creatures got on us, two of them got a hold of Charlie and one of them got a hold of myself. And all of a sudden I felt when this thing grabbed my arm, I felt like an injection that was injected. And I figured that was kind of to settle me down, because when he immediately injected that into my arm, I just felt calmness. I wasn't afraid anymore. Now, I couldn't move nothing but my head. I could roll it from side to side, roll my eyes from side to side, but it just more or less kind of paralyzed me. But this thing started taking me toward the crowd, toward the light. And we got to the door, and the one thing that I distinctly remember is looking inside and trying to find out where the lights came from. Well, I couldn't do nothing but look inside, just look straight ahead because I couldn't move nothing. And the lights seemed to be coming out of the walls. There was no light fixtures or anything in there. So we got in, and he made an immediate left, went down the hall just a little ways, and made another right. And he laid me at about a 16-degree angle on an examination table, or what I call an examination table, and just kind of backed up out of the way. Well, being paralyzed and all, about all I could do was look up at the ceiling. Something about the size of a deck of cards came down, stopped about a foot from my foot and a half from my head. And it circled my head. And as it went from one spot to the other, it would click. And then when it got in front of my eyes again, it just shot back up into the ceiling. Now, I recollect Charlie calling it a big eye. Now, to me, it looked like about a deck of cards. When this thing shot back up into the ceiling, I was laying there, still couldn't really move. There's this female creature, alien, or something. I called the one that brought me in a big, ugly one, and he was more robotic than he was flesh or anything. Because you could tell by the way he was moving that he really wasn't in control of himself or thinking for himself. But this other female-looking creature that came out, she looked more or less kind of normal. The only thing, I could see her hands when she put them in front of my face, go rub me on the cheek there for a minute. Her fingers was just a little bit longer, but she had eyes, nose, ears, mouth, and looked fairly normal. I mean, if I'd been in a bar drinking, she would have looked pretty good. But I didn't drink it that day in time. But she grabbed me by the cheek and she rubbed me on the cheeks. Well, I didn't have any feelings whatsoever. I couldn't feel any warmth from her skin or any emotions from her at the time. Then she took her other hand and she pushed my cheek down and opened my mouth. And she got her hand and she run it down my throat. And that little thing that hangs down in the back of your throat, I don't know what to call it, but she tried to come up behind that. That's when I started choking. My nose started bleeding. And I was in a great deal of pain. Well, seeing I was in distress, she pulled her fingers out and she communicated just like she was sitting there talking, but her mouth never moved. She says, "We're not going to harm you." And I understood it just as plain as day, and it was just like I could hear her mouth didn't move. So I figured that was telepathic. And she backed up out of the way when I was kind of in distress and made a little mumbling noise in her throat. And that big ugly creature that I call it, he came back over and grabbed me by the arm. When he did, I felt another injection, and it just kind of calmed me. But later on, I did find out that we was injected with something when we went to the emergency room. But it kind of calmed me down when she backed up out of the way. And this big ugly one picked me up, floated just right back out to the river, set me down almost where we was, my hands facing the river, and me standing and my arms stretched out. And then that's when I heard Charlie for the first time and seen him the first time. Charlie was on the ground. He said, son, you okay? Well, when he did, it kind of snapped me out of things, and I turned and looked. And the bright lights went out, and this thing picked up off the ground a little ways, and then it just shot up into the air and disappeared. I mean, it was quick. So, that's pretty much the abduction story. So Charlie and I, we was sitting there, and he said, there ain't nobody gonna believe this. And I automatically said, what, Charlie? No, I didn't see nothing. Nothing happened. He said, well, we gotta tell somebody. I said, sit down. The danger's over, so let's sit down here and talk about it for a minute. He said, we gotta tell somebody. Tell them what, Charlie? I didn't see nothing. I didn't see nothing. I don't want to be involved in this or nothing. And we specifically talked about that while we were sitting there. Then after a few minutes, we got up and we started back to the car. When we got to the car, the windows were shattered on the passenger side, but they were shattered in place, and that plastic inside the windows was holding that safety glass together until he opened the door. When he opened the door and closed it, then it all just kind of fell out. I got in on the driver's seat. The car was really hard to crank. It took probably 15 minutes to get it to crank. And finally got it kicked off. Well, it didn't run right, but I was ready to get the hell away from there anyway. So we got in the car, we backed up, we started to leave, and we was going toward his apartment, and there was a little convenience store there, and I forget what they called it there, kind of like a little Magic Mark store or something. He said, pull over here, they got a phone. Well, they have got blue laws in the state of Mississippi back then where you couldn't really buy nothing after a certain time. And I was wondering when one of them wanted to pull over, and he asked me, he said, "You got a dime for the phone?" Well, I just figured he was going to call his wife and tell her we'd be there in a few minutes. I overheard him on the phone asking for Keesler Air Force Base out of Biloxi. Well, he had called Keesler after we had talked about not calling nobody. And they told him they don't do any of these abductions or anything like that. They had to call the local police department or sheriff department. So he came back to the phone to get a dime, and I was thinking, well, he's an idiot going to call somebody to tell them what happened. But his mind was made up. So we eventually found a dime under the seat, and he put it in the phone, and he called the sheriff, Jackson County Sheriff Department. And he said, "Y'all not going to believe me when I tell you this, but I need to tell you something." He said, "But you got to promise me we're not going to laugh. You're not going to laugh." And of course, the deputy told him, "Well, we're not going to laugh." And I talked to the deputy later on, just this year, and I asked him, I said, "Well, what did you do?" He said, "We laughed." But Charlie talked to the deputy, and they told us to stay in place, not to move, not to go nowhere, just stay right there until they got there. And it didn't take them but a few minutes. A patrol car pulled up. They got out of the car. They walked up to the window on my side. Now, I don't know. I wasn't the one that called them, and I have no idea when they came up on my side. I guess because I was the one driving. They asked to see my ID, my driver's license, and just looked at the car. They didn't search it. They just turned to look through the windows and asked me to step out, to stand on one leg, and bend my head back, touch my nose, close my eyes, touch my nose, jump up and down and count backwards. And I remember telling him, "Hell, man, I couldn't do that if I was sober." Of course, I hadn't been drinking because back then I didn't drink. Then he said, "Well, follow my fingers with your eyes." So I did that. He said, "You appear to be okay to drive. So follow us to the sheriff department." Well, we got in the car and we followed them to the Jackson County Sheriff Department in Pascagoula. And they took Charlie and I in separate rooms. They took me in and gave me future alcohol tests to see if I'd been drinking. Because I was the one that was driving the car, so I guess they was concentrating on me. And they discovered, that I hadn't drank nothing. Of course, I told them that to start with. And they took us to different interrogation rooms. They interrogated us separately. Well, then when they got through, they brought us together and they put us in one room together. But what we didn't realize, they had put a tape recorder inside this room. And they was taping our conversations because they left the room. And I guess they just wanted to see what we were saying to each other. We didn't know the tape recorder was in there. And that's where what they call the secret tape came from. And that's one of the things that convinced the sheriff department all that we was telling the truth. So I noticed he came in and I didn't see him get the tape recorder, but they went out and they took it to the sheriff, Fred Diamond. This I found out later on. He listened to it, and he called us in there. He said, "Why don't y'all go home, get some rest, and I'll see y'all tomorrow." And I was thinking, well, that ain't good. And the questions that they asked us there, they tried to intimidate us a little bit when this first happened, but I was beyond intimidation because I was scared. I was 18 years old. So we left and went home. When I got to the house, I was worried I had just watched on TV about this Apollo mission where they landed and they quarantined the astronauts for several days there. They wouldn't let them see their family and friends. And I was worried that maybe these foreign identities that we see, that we might have had some kind of infection and we was going to contaminate everybody and make everybody sick. That's what was going through my mind. I was more worried about everybody else than I was myself. So when we got home, or got to Charlie's apartment, and I was renting a little room from him back there, I went into the bathroom, I pulled all my clothes off. There was a gallon of bleach sitting on the bathtub, and I turned that bleach over my head, and I rubbed all that bleach in because I knew as a child, my mother used to kill poison ivy and everything else with bleach when it got on it, that it had to help. So I took a shower and I put all my clothes, even my shoes, in a little bag, and I went out and threw them in a dumpster. Now that's how concerned I was about making somebody else sick. I went in there and I wanted to go to sleep. I couldn't sleep. Of course, I don't think Charlie did either. Got up the next morning early, and Charlie and Blanche were sitting in there at the table. And I said, let's go to work and we'll get us something to eat on the way. So we got up and we left and went to a little grocery store that fixed breakfast in the morning. And Charlie grabbed something. Back then I didn't need a whole lot and didn't want nothing. And we went on to work. Well, I noticed when we got to the L.P. Walker & Son shipyard, there were a lot of cars there. Now, I didn't know how many were supposed to be there or nothing about it because this was just my second day going to work. And we brassed in, we went to our workstation, and it wasn't 2 minutes after we got there, apparently, somebody in the office came down to get us, took us back to the office. And I knew that somehow word must have got out. And they told us, look, y'all gonna have to give a press release. You're gonna have to tell these people something. We have an attorney on the way that works for the shipyard. Y'all tell them he can work a press release. We can't work in the office. The phones keep ringing off the hook. People's calling. We can't conduct any kind of business in here until y'all do this. Get rid of this damn media. And y'all won't be able to work out in the field because the men, when they catch wind of this, are going to want to talk to y'all and see what happened. And they was right, you know. So they sent their attorney over, Joe Camingo, and we sat down and Charlie, then I wasn't talking about none of this because I didn't want to be involved. But Charlie told him what had happened, and they more or less gave the press release off that. He come in there and want to talk to me, and I just kept having nothing happen, or maybe it was a dream or something like that. But it went on from there. They decided I expressed my concerns about having either radiation or a bacterial infection, and they decided the sheriff department was there by then, and they said, well, we better take these guys to the emergency room because they was concerned about some kind of contamination or outbreak. That told me right then they was believing what we had told them. And they could see the fear in my eyes and see the fear in Charlie's eyes, or voice or language that we spoke with everybody. So they loaded us up and they took us to Jackson County Singing River Hospital. And they gave us a real thorough examination. They did some blood work. They worked on did everything they could. And they come out and said, y'all look fine. They're going to take y'all down to Chisholm Air Force Base and get you checked for radiation. So when we left there, we got in a patrol car, and the deputy turned his lights and sirens on like something big was going on. And I was wondering, why did he do that? If they was trying to get us to Keesler to get us checked for radiation. We got to the gates at Keesler, and it being an Air Force base, usually they would stop anybody that goes in and check them. They didn't even slow us down. They took us straight to the back, And when we got there was 5 or 6 guys in hazmat suits. They stepped us out of the car. They separated us from everybody else. And they checked us for radiation, I guess. And I heard one of them say, all clear. And everybody pulled their hazmat suits off. And they said they want to talk to y'all. Go down this hall all the way to the back to the conference room. So we went. Charlie and I started walking to the back with an escort. And it seemed like that was the longest hallway I had ever walked down. And I still didn't know what a UFO or an alien or anything else was. In my thinking, I was thinking that maybe they was experimenting with some kind of new aircraft and all, and the James just got out too, they just got too far along with it. But when they got in there and started interrogating us, and they was really nice about it. Nobody got out of place. We had Air Force officials. We had the local officials like the mayor, the police chiefs, sheriff department. We had all these people in there. They asked us to tell our story. So we did. We sat there and told them the story the best they could. I figured then I might have to talk a little bit. And they said, well, we're finished. Thank y'all. So they thanked us, and the deputy that brought us there put us in the car. And on the way back to the shipyard, who was going to let us out, he said, y'all don't leave yet. There's some people coming in want to see y'all. And I thought, now what? And it was Dr. Hynek, Dr. James Harder from California. They had flew there, and Hynek was over Project Bluebook when it was there, but he came on his own dime. The Air Force didn't send him or anybody to investigate this and to talk to Charlie and I. So when we got there, they was out at the where this happened, checking out the scene where all this went on, which it should have been treated like a crime scene. They should have taken it off and had a guard out there until everybody looked at it, but they did. So Harder and Hynek was over at the scene where this happened. They told us to go in and be back the next morning. So we went in and tried to sleep a little bit. There was no sleep. I was worried because I knew the news media had leaked all this out. And, I was concerned for my family and everybody worried about me. So we got up the next morning and we went back to the office, and that's where Dr. Harder examined us, and Dr. Hynek, he asked us questions, and then Harder tried to hypnotize us, and I got so afraid that he had to kind of bring me out. He couldn't really leave me hypnotized. He was concerned about my mental being then, I guess. And once they got through, they said, y'all can go. So the one thing I did, I took Charlie back home. I got what few little clothes I had left that I didn't throw away. I loaded up in my car, and I went back to Laurel, Mississippi. And I swore to myself that was the longest ride I've ever taken in my life. And I told myself, I'll never talk about this to anyone. Nobody's not going to question me about this. This didn't happen as far as I'm concerned. Because it done cost me my new job. I had a brand new 1973 Rambler Hornet then. It was destroyed. And it never run right after that. And I just didn't want it in my life. So when I got home, my family never asked me about it. I was engaged to get married to a girl, and I figured that was off because her daddy had heard it on the news, and he was somewhat strict. And back then, they pretty much ruled the nest. So I didn't figure I was engaged anymore. Like my family and friends, they never asked me about anything, and I never told them. Up until July last year when the book come out. That's the first that my family had heard anything from my mouth that I had talked about it, and my friends. And I swore that I was going to give this a year, which, it'd be a year this July. But I considered a year in October now. And I would talk about it, and I would go around and do what I could. And actually, it's been relieving to me. We've had new witnesses come out. It's just been so much happening. It's happening so fast. And for the first time in my life, I was able to sit down and tell my wife about it. Now, this happened in 73, and I just told her July last year. So, you know how it is when you keep a secret from your wife. I mean, they don't usually like it. But I didn't consider it a secret. I just didn't want to talk about it. And she never asked me. None of my family or friends ever asked me. But when the book came out, then I felt I owed it to them and the citizens of the Mississippi Gulf Coast, at least since they was the ones that went through this with me, to sit down and talk about all this. And that's what I did. And I never figured the book would sell any at all. I figured maybe it would sell 10 copies because I was going to buy 10 copies for myself, give to my family so I wouldn't have to sit down and tell the story. But first, actually, it was supposed to come out in September. They accidentally released it a little bit in July. Well, people got a taste for it. And by popular demand, they had to put it back on sale. They couldn't sit on it. They just put it back up on the market in July instead of waiting until September. It's been on the #1 bestsellers list. It kind of dropped there for about a month. It dropped to #3. But now it's back up to #1 again. And it's in several different languages. It's in several different countries. I mean, it has exploded and went all over. I never would have figured this. But it's been good for me going around talking about it. And actually, I never took a vacation. And my wife and I, we go to these few conferences. And that gives us time together, and we get to see different parts. Her being from Jones County, she's never really left Jones County too much, and travel. So it's been exciting and different for me and her both.
Well, good. You're kind of like a movie star now at this point, aren't you?
Oh, gosh. You wouldn't believe. I went from my neighbors not even knowing who I was because I never really told them anything about me or what my name was. I never got out and circulated around. I always tended to my own business. I didn't like nobody sticking their nose in my business. So now I can't even go downtown without somebody recognizing me. Just this morning, I got a call from the sheriff of Jackson County, and he said, Calvin. I said, yes, sir. He said, this is Mike Ezel. He said, would you do me a favor and get me a book and come by here and sign it, and I'll buy it from you. And just calls like that. We had the dedication of this plaque and had a long speech by the mayor there, and it's just blowed up. I'm not used to this kind of attention.
Wow.
Sister-in-law was down here right after the book came out. And, of course, they from Atlanta, Georgia, and she was speeding on the highway. Well, the highway patrol pulled her over. Well, they was getting on to her about speeding, fixing to write her a ticket and all, I guess. Well, her husband was on the other side. He told them, he said, well, we're going to see our brother-in-law, Calvin Parker. Do you know him? So he just wrote her a warning ticket in, told her, drive careful and tell me hi. So
that's pretty neat. You're getting pretty famous down there.
Yes, sir, all over the coast. Well, everybody knows me. And all I wanted to do was just retire and work on my little houseboat and just enjoy my fishing and fun. But I have to say it has been nice. I've enjoyed the good intention from all this. And the publisher of the book asked me the other day, how do I handle any negative attention? And of course, I really hadn't had any, but one person kind of got sparked comments with me. And that's like I asked him. I told Philip, I don't care if they believe me or not. That's their decision. That's up to them. I'm telling the truth. I'm not going to lie for me or nobody else. And I told this guy, I said, well, he was really kind of getting smart with me. I said, look, I'm not going to argue with you. Have you bought the book? He said, I have. I said, have you read the book? He said, I have. And I think that's a bunch of bull ass. I said, well, look, if you bought it, you paid for it, you read it, I don't really care what you think. So
right.
You can kind of keep the opinion to yourself. But the book, I don't have much education. And it's just something, and I asked the publisher of the book when he did it, I said, look, the only way I'm going to do this is for you not to edit this book. I don't want a misspelled word fixed. I don't want a question mark or a period put in there that I didn't put in. I speak redneck language. I want that left alone. And he abided by all that. And I think that's one thing that made the book go over so well, because people can relate, especially people here from the South. They can relate to the way that I talk, and that's just me. And they said it's just like you sitting in the living room with us, and you tell us your story when we read this book. And the people that know me know that that's just the way that I am. And the way this book even came up, we had a neighbor that passed away. And my wife and I was going to the wake at the funeral home. And we got there, I did something I've never usually done. She said, sign the register for us when you walk in the door. So I signed the register. Well, it wasn't just a few minutes. There was people coming up from Texas and everywhere else. They said, are you the Calvin Parker? I said, I guess I am the Calvin Parker. I don't know what you're talking about. And then they got into saying, well, I remember when that happened and all. I said, look, not being disrespectful to y'all, but being respectful to this man's family and his wife and child, I'm not going to talk about this. I'm fixing to get my car and leave. So I told my wife, I said, let's go. Well, on the way home, she said, you need to write a book. You need to tell your story. You never talked to me about it. You never talked to nobody about it. You can't keep hiding this from the public. You need to write a book. I said, well, what you need to understand is I don't have an education. I'm not a book person. I remember numbers because I've dealt with numbers all my life when in the construction field. And I said, the only way I could write a book, if a ghostwriter did it. And I was telling her that to get her off my case. I didn't figure it would ever be mentioned again. Well, when we got home, the next day, it's just like God sent it, a signal. Philip Mantle, the publisher of the book, had called Martin Willis and asked him for my contact information. And Philip had bought the rights for Charlie's book, and he wanted to ask me some questions. So he called and asking me questions about the book Charlie wrote. I said, Philip, I don't know. I've never read the book, don't care to read it. Although I was supposed to own a percentage of it, I never got a penny from it. And I could care less about Charlie's book. I said, every time I talk about this situation to somebody, reporters usually find me and they slip up on me. And I've had them just show up on the back door. The time it gets out, it's changed. I said, this thing is spectacular enough like it is, it don't need to be changed. And he said, well, and when he said this, it really made good sense. He said, well, why don't you write a book that will be your legacy? It'll be in your words, and there can't nobody go in and change it. Well, actually, the guy made a lot of sense, but still I had the education problem. I didn't know how to write a book, didn't want to write a book. And I just blew him off. I said, well, let me think about it. And that way, I got rid of him, and I thought I did. And he said, well, I'll call you back in a week. Well, good to his word, he called back in a week. And I was going to screen his call when he called, if he called again. And I accidentally answered the phone. And he says, well, look, I know it's going to take you 2 or 3 years to do this. He said, but you really need to do this. This is really spectacular. Everybody wants to hear your side. And you owe it to the people. You owe it to yourself to do this. I said, Philip, I don't have an education. I've never written a book. And I said, but I would try to do this the best of my knowledge in the way that I can. If you do not edit nothing in the book, not a misspelled word, not a mispunctuated word, you don't edit nothing in my book. And we got a deal if you want to do that. He said, well, I know it'll take you 2 or 3 weeks to do it. I said, no. I had 2 or 3 years to do it. I said, no, it won't take me but maybe 2 or 3 weeks to do it, because I've lived this for 45 years. I know the story. I just got to put it down. So when I got through talking to him, I went up and told my wife, I said, well, I'm going to do the book, and I just made a deal with a publisher in the UK. And he said he would help me, keep me on the right track, that he would not edit nothing or anything. And when I finish in 2 or 3 years, it would come out. I said, but I'm going to my bedroom. I'm closing the door. I'm leaving my phone in there. Don't answer it, because I don't need to talk to anybody. Once a day, bring me something to eat. Bring me a little something to drink a couple of times a day. And leave me alone. I'm fixing to go write this book. And in a week, I walked out back here, and the book was ready, and I had it sent to Philip. And he said, well, it looks like quite a mess. I need to straighten a few of this stuff up. I said, no, that's a deal. You're not straightening nothing up. It is what it is. This is me, so don't worry about it. And he published it just like it was. Of course, he added some news clippings and all to show the sincerity of what was going on. And it's done great. I never figured I'd sell not but 10 copies, and that was to myself to get to my family, so I wouldn't have to tell them about it.
Well, that's great, man. I'm glad it's worked out for you. I know that was probably at the time a pretty harrowing encounter, but it seemed like it happened for a reason, and now it's kind of working out for you, or at least probably being therapeutic for you to get this story off your chest completely, and then let everybody know your side of it. And
it has been real therapeutic. And I'm the type person, I'm a firm believer, God first, family second. And if you do that, you'll always be taken care of and do the right thing by people and all. And I feel like God must have wanted me to do this because, He made it possible. I mean, after 45 years, who in the world would ever think that I would sit down and write a book, especially me dodging the press and all. But it's kind of like I told somebody when this first started. Everybody's got an expiration date on their head. And mine's getting close. I'm in seriously bad health. I was there for a while. I've had a stroke, 2 open heart surgeries. And I figured I would be expired by now anyhow. But, God let me live on. And He's let me get all this off my chest. And actually, He's kind of extra resource He's brought in to help with some of these bills. It hadn't been a lot of money made on it because I didn't get into this for the money. But it's been just a little bit extra where I could give to some of my charities, things like that. Yeah, and, you know, we go on these little trips, it's all paid for. It gives my wife and myself time with each other that we never had vacations. And we've got a good, clear line of communication now. And that's what's important to me. Like I say, God first, family second.
Yeah, that's right. I totally agree with you. And I think he's keeping you around for a reason. So maybe he'll continue to bless you and the book. And how does that, you know, knowing that you are a man of faith, how does that incident, what happened to you, affect that? I mean, you know, it's really not mainstream. Or you know, if you go into the church and you talk about this kind of stuff, people think, you know, you've lost your mind or you've lost your way or something like that. How does that affect, you know, your faith, having this happen to you?
Well, it's never affected my faith. Maybe made it a little stronger because I've had to endure a lot of stuff, and I've always turned, you know, to God for this. But, you know, I've never doubted. And if you look around this earth, just on earth here, at the different religions and different type people that's here, and, you know, you got thousands of different types and different faiths. Just look up in the sky at all the stars. It's got to be other life besides this. And I just figure it's other life around, just kind of like it's from here on the, you know, here in the world. So I try not to think about it that much. But I know I've read the Bible several times over from page to page. And I try to hunt something in there like anybody else would. And all I say is, you know, the good word, and people say, well, man wrote the Bible. Well, that's true, man wrote it. But God dictated the Bible. He, over hundreds of years, these stories was passed down from generation to generation. And they'd sit around there and talk about this. And back then, a liar was the biggest thing to get to hell as far as I was concerned. And, you know, they would tell their stories and they wouldn't change it. And then at the end of the Bible, it said, let no man add to nor change anything, or he surely is in the depths of hell. So, if anything, it's made my faith stronger.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, you know, I think whether it was mentioned in the Bible or not, I think, you know, it just adds to the testament of how great or magnificent he is, that he could have planted more out there than just us. I mean, the universe is very vast. And I'm like you. I don't think all of this was created just for us, but I could be wrong. But it's pretty amazing out there. It's way bigger than I think people realize.
Oh yeah, and you know, I've always said I don't know if this was alien or not. Up until this happened to me, I never heard of UFOs and aliens and all. And I don't know. I still to this day say I don't know what it was. All I can do is tell what happened to me.
Right,
and let everybody draw their own conclusions.
Well, yeah, and that was my next question. What did you think these were? But yeah, I mean, there's no way of knowing.
No, it's no way of knowing, and we probably don't want to know.
Right, right.
So, I live on the mysterious side. I always say I don't know, and you know, everybody can just draw their own conclusions what's going on. Personally, I do think it's life on another planet.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I really think so too, and you know, and I just had a couple of points that you know, if you don't mind me backing up and asking you a couple of questions. I know I could talk to you.
Go right ahead.
I could talk to you all night, man, and but I'm not going to keep you. But you know, you were talking about when you got to work the next day. All these cars were there, and it's like the news traveled fast somehow. And if you guys weren't talking, it seems like there was a way bigger deal made by higher authorities. You know, it's like they almost knew that something had happened, before before everybody else did. And it's like they wanted to really get you guys get your guys' story on record.
I often thought about that. There for a long time, I got mad at Charlie because I thought he might have told somebody and broke the story and all. But later on, I found out, he really did. I really do think that they knew something was going on before it happened. And that's what brought all this attention on us. And, they might have caught wind through a scanner or something. Because back then, people by nature was nosy. And they all had these scanners they listened to. They didn't have social media or cell phones, but they would listen to these police scanners for the police and fire department. And I think, to be honest, that Kiesel probably knew what was going on, or, the Air Force might have. And they called on to this through the local sheriff department when they called it out on the scanners, and it just went crazy from there.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. I think someone was listening, and if not, they probably knew it was happening. And the only other which is like I said, I've got tons of questions, but I'm going to try and I don't want to take up too much of your time, but. And this is kind of something I ask a lot of. I've heard some of these stories, not to the magnitude of yours, but some of these events or sightings or anything having to do with some of this paranormal stuff. I like to ask people if they've, to engage all your senses: the sight, the sound, the touch, the smell. But I mean, did you happen to have any weird smells? Did you smell anything odd, or did you even have maybe even an odd taste in the air, in your mouth? And I know that sounds weird, but I'm asking for a specific reason.
I've been asked this question before, and as far as smells, where you live down here on the coast and in Alabama and all, around Pascagoula they have that toady plant and different things, and you smell the smell of kind of dead fish and all. It's not a real good smell all the time.
Okay.
And that was kind of what was going on there. So I really couldn't smell anything other than the natural, what was out. So, no, I didn't smell nothing or really hear nothing out of place.
All right, what about any kind of odd tastes in your mouth, like either before or after the examination, or even with the craft, or when the craft was taken off? Did you happen to taste anything weird?
Well, that's a good question there. What I tasted, when she run her fingers down my throat, was like blood. That was the only thing a little bit different I could taste.
Okay. And like I said, the reason I'm asking some of these is some of the people that I have talked to or interviewed, there seems to be a pattern starting to form as far as some of the smells people are starting to report, or once they think about it, or once I ask it, they kind of remember, like, yeah, there was an odd smell. It's almost like a rotten egg or a sulfur smell in some of these cases having to do with either UFOs or any kind of possible alien encounters, or even, believe it or not, in some kind of demonic activity or any kind of paranormal activity. And the people that have reported some UFO encounters have also reported that they have actually had like a metallic taste in their mouth, almost like, you take a 9-volt battery and you touch it to your tongue to test it. It seems to be like if there's a high field of magnetic activity around the area, people have that metallic taste in your mouth, or even like someone that's been struck by lightning. And that's kind of the reason I was asking. I'm just some things that go off in my brain. I have to ask I'm curious about certain things, so I have to ask questions.
Yeah. It never hurts to ask anything. But, I was so upset that night that it's just hard to really answer some of them.
Right.
There's a lot of it, it's hard to remember.
Yeah, I bet. And like I said, I hate that it happened to you, but it is an amazing account, and I just can't, I can't stress to you enough that I'm glad that you're getting this off your chest now, and I'm glad you're got the book out and it's doing well, and I really appreciate you coming on and talking to me. I know I don't know how many listeners I have actually. Probably not a lot. I may have a couple of family members listening, but the more we can talk about this and make awareness to this, I think the more people will feel safe enough to tell their story. And I think it just helps for everyone to tell their story.
Exactly right. And I don't mind talking about it at all, and it's been a real pleasure being here with you this evening.
Well, yes, sir. Same here. Maybe if I get back down to Mississippi sometime, we'll have to go fishing and we can talk about it some more. But if we start...
You got my phone number. All you got to do is call.
Well, I say go fishing. If we start seeing blue lights or start hearing any weird noises, we may have to leave. But
a funny thing at the first boat signing I had on October 11th, they raffled off a fishing trip with me. Now, people didn't mind paying to buy a raffle ticket, but when it got right down to it, nobody wanted to go fishing with me.
Well,
and one thing I told them, I do a lot of fishing at night when it's hot.
Well, I'd probably have to try it. If I was down there, I'd have to hang on and go with you. I'd be curious. But
it's a lot of fun.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, Mr. Parker, thank you.
You're welcome to come anytime.
Yeah, I got your information, and if you ever get up to Nashville, you've got my number and information. Give me a shout, and we'll find something to go get into. I know we got a lot of good food up here, and we got our own lakes and rivers that have pretty good fishing as well. So you just let me know anytime you get up in the area.
That'll work. I appreciate it.
Well, Mr. Parker, thank you so much again. It was a highlight of this whole thing for me. Like I said, I've been reading about your story since I was 10 or 11 years old, which is now probably 45 years ago. But man, I wish you the best of luck. And if you ever need anything, don't hesitate to give me a shout.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thank you a lot. I've enjoyed being on here with you.
All right, yes, sir. Thank you. And that's a wrap for episode 15, Calvin Parker, the Pascagoula incident. Thanks, guys, so much for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed this as much as I have. So remember, if you'd like to be a guest on the show, or even just tell me your stories, give me a shout. My email address is mysteriousHuntsman@gmail.com, or you can find me on Facebook. All right, guys, until next time, have a great week and an upcoming weekend, and we will see you later.